Good afternoon, Central Georgia. Over the past 12 hours, we've received new data from the models that has given us a better picture on what's going to go on through this upcoming weekend. We also have a winter storm watch just issued by the National Weather Service as of the past hour. So let's get into the nitty-gritty with the headlines. I'm going to put this full screen just to show you. So of course today, on and off showers are possible for north central Georgia. And of course the main story is a wintry mix possible throughout Saturday and throughout the upcoming weekend. So I'd say most of the wintry mix and ice accumulation would occur Sunday morning, and the impacts could linger all the way until Monday morning as well. So here's a look at the weather impact alert. And of course, going over the timing once again, I'd say Saturday afternoon, it looks like some isolated wintry mix is possible, but once we reach the window where we go below freezing around Sunday morning, that's when we could potentially experience widespread wintry mix and ice accumulation. And then once we get into the Sunday afternoon, we'll transition into more of a cold rain, but some of that rain could potentially refreeze once we get into Monday morning. So that's overall the timing of the event over the weekend. And as we get into the satellite and radar, if we look towards the general area, we're seeing more cloud cover for the northern half of central Georgia. And then down towards the south, we're seeing mostly clear weather. We're also seeing some showers for our most northern counties, such as Jasper County and even Putnam County over the past hour or so. Now, this is all due to a frontal boundary that has just parked itself around that area. So that's why we're seeing constant rain for North Georgia at the current moment. Once again, this is all due to a frontal boundary that just parked itself, and it's going to stall over the next 2 days. And it's also going to strengthen and gain a lot of moisture from the Gulf. And moisture is one of the key ingredients needed for winter weather to develop. So as this front continues to strengthen and receive more ingredients, another air mass coming in from the north, a Canadian Arctic air mass, will come down and interact with all that Gulf moisture. And this is the reason why we'll have the winter weather possibilities throughout the upcoming weekend. Then this front will go down towards the south. We're going to lose moisture, but the temperatures are going to be still below average, or below freezing. So once again, anything that falls throughout the weekend could potentially refreeze throughout Monday morning. And looking at the humidity levels all across our area, we're seeing that surge in moisture coming in from the south. You can see the green shades from Florida and even Mobile, looking at muggy weather over there. All of that moisture will be pumped into our area over the next couple of days. And once you get that moisture interacting with that extremely cold air, that's where you get the potential for winter weather. So of course, here's a look at the future view. This is the future view graph model. And over the next 2 days, on and off isolated rain for the northern half of central Georgia is going to be possible. Could see some steadier rain for the most northern counties such as Putnam and Jasper County. And we'll go into Friday midday, and once again those isolated showers are still possible. Then right around the late afternoon, early evening, that's when everything should start to dry out and be mainly dry throughout the rest of Friday. Now I know the forecast for the next 2 days are pretty irrelevant as compared to what's going to come for this upcoming weekend. And as you can see, once we get into Saturday afternoon by 2 to 3 o'clock, the graph model is indicating some isolated to scattered spots of wintry mix that could occur for the northern half of our area. And then once we get into the late morning, we see a cluster of wintry mix and ice coming in from the west. Now this is the same cluster that is expected to move through our most northern counties, and this is the reason why we could potentially see higher impacts for the most northern counties of central Georgia. Now looking at the long range future view, so this is the GFS model in terms of what's going to happen for the rest of Sunday morning. And you can see it still has that wintry mix lingering for our most northern counties. And then by the afternoon, we'll transition into a cold rain that will last throughout the rest of Saturday, or I keep getting Saturday and Sunday mixed up, sorry, last throughout the rest of Sunday, and that could linger until Monday morning. So by Monday afternoon, we're going to be mostly clear throughout that time. Now, this is the reason why we are still pointing out the potential of refreezing throughout the overnight, because if the rain continues all throughout Sunday, then there's definitely a good chance of all of that rain potentially freezing once again, causing very hazardous roadways. Here's a look at the European model. And if we take this to Sunday morning, it shows once again that wintry mix still lingering for our most northern counties. And then we'll transition into a cold rain earlier in the day Sunday. And then once we get into Monday early morning, we'll be mostly clear. So as you can see, we're starting to see model consistency from both the GFS and the Euro, indicating that the impacts are higher and we have greater confidence for our most northern counties, such as Jasper, Putnam County, Hancock County, even parts of Jones County and Baldwin County. And sneak peek, those are the places that are highlighted within the winter storm watch by the National Weather Service. So looking at the type of precipitation, because I've been getting questions all throughout the past couple of days. Are we going to see snow, or is this something else? We are not going to see snow. This is going to be quite the opposite of what we experienced this past weekend. Instead of snow, we're going to see freezing rain and sleet. So this is all due to the upper layers of the atmosphere being warmer than the surface. So in order for freezing rain and sleet to occur, you need the surface to be below freezing. And what we are expecting throughout the weekend is that surface, of course, is going to be below freezing, but the upper layers is going to be warmer. So the precipitation that falls from the sky, from the clouds, is going to come down as rain, and then it will travel down, and then eventually, once it hits a cold layer near the surface, is when it will start to transition into freezing rain, or you can have a mix of snow and rain. That's what we call sleet. Now, both sleet and freezing rain are not really good for hazards, or for roads, or for electrical lines, or anything like that. This is the reason why we are continuing to put emphasis on the risks of power outages and hazardous roadways. And because of that, both of those types of precipitation could form ice, and this is the main impact that we could see throughout the weekend. Let's take a look at the model and their takes on the amount of ice that we could see. This is the European model. This is the latest run, and it shows ice for, once again, the most northern counties: Hancock County, Putnam County, and Jasper County. We have the GFS model, and it shows more areas that could potentially receive ice accumulation. So it shows more of Baldwin County receiving ice accumulation, and it shows half of Washington County as well. Even parts of Monroe County and Lamar County are within that zone that could receive ice accumulation. This is the North American model. This is another model that we use, and it shows, once again, those areas: Putnam, Jasper, and Hancock County receiving ice, but it shows less than the past two models. Now, I also want you to note that these models don't take into account the potential for any rain or ice that could potentially freeze in the overnight due to below freezing temperatures. This is all due to freezing rain and wintry mix that falls and immediately accumulates to ice. So I just want you to note that we could potentially receive more ice than what is shown because of that threat of anything falling throughout Sunday, potentially refreezing throughout Monday morning. So just to go over the risks of ice and how much ice will be impactful for us. So less than 1/10 of an inch of ice, which will be a light glaze. I'll just put some ice on and trees on power lines, some slick spots and sidewalks for the roads. It won't be as impactful. And I think places farther down towards the south, I think places such as Macon, maybe even Warner Robins, they could potentially see maybe a light glaze. But I don't think it will be as impactful for places farther north that could receive maybe 1/4 of an inch of ice, and which will be considered problematic. So those places could see coated windshields and cars, and it'll be dangerous for bridges. It'll be very hazardous to drive on, and this is where you can start seeing power lines and trees starting to fall, and of course power lines starting to fail because of the overall weight of the ice on the lines. And then this is where we would have a situation. If we go over half an inch of ice, it would be crippling. It would be catastrophic, as that's where we'll have widespread power outages, as a lot of trees will be damaged and a lot of power lines will also be damaged as well. This will be the scenario where we would have long-lasting power outages, and roads would be impossible to drive on. Now, in terms of the overall forecast for these, for the amount of ice, it's been different all throughout these models. However, if there are any places that could receive over a half an inch of ice, it would be for the most northern parts of Jasper, Putnam, and Hancock County. So here's a look at the headlines. This is going to be an ice concern. This is not going to be snow, so don't expect truly a white Christmas to go out and be looking picturesque and to play with snowballs. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be way worse than what we had last weekend, and we could have the potential for refreezing into the work week. Now, the timing is a little uncertain, but we do have a better idea. It looks like this will be starting Saturday afternoon, but most of the ice accumulation will be for Sunday morning, and then we'll transition into a cold rain Sunday afternoon, but some of that rain could potentially refreeze into Monday morning as well. And overall, the highest confidence of impacts will be for places farther north. So for places within the winter storm watch that I am going to show right here. This is the winter storm watch that has just been issued an hour ago. And as you can see, this has all of North Georgia, but it also has those counties that have been consistently been shown within the models that have that potential for ice and wintry mix. So once again, this is a winter storm watch. It's not a warning or advisory, but this is the watch, meaning that this could happen. There's a potential of places in these areas that could receive up to half an inch of ice. Now, of course, I think that risk is greater towards the mountains in North Georgia, but of course, the National Weather Service just saw that potential, included all of those counties that had that potential. So specifically, Jasper, Jones, Putnam, Baldwin, Hancock, and Washington County are within that winter storm watch. And this starts at around Saturday afternoon and goes into Monday morning, which is the same exact timing as our weather impact alert. Now, I do believe some other counties could be included within this watch in the next 24 hours. If there were to be a county included, I would bet that it would be Monroe County. I think Monroe County would have that potential. I wouldn't be surprised if Bibb County also gets added. However, for everyone living in Macon watching, my confidence is low that Macon would have any true impactful ice that would cause long-lasting power outages. In all honesty, I think the impacts are going to be reserved for places north of Macon. If you live south of Macon, I once again believe you have the chance for some light ice, but I don't think it's going to be as crippling or as impactful as places north of Macon, north of I-16. So this is for everyone living in Warner Robins, Perry. The more south you go, the better this weekend is going to be for you. I think for our southern counties, it's going to be more of a rain event all throughout the weekend. So here's a look at the newest map also from the National Weather Service. It also highlights the impacts and also a map of the severity of the impacts. Now, this actually kind of goes against their newest winter storm watch. I bet a lot of people are asking, I see the most of Washington County within a low potential for impacts. Same thing goes for most of central Georgia. And this just goes to show that most of the impacts from the storm overall are going to be for the North Georgia mountains. So whenever you hear the headlines about catastrophic impacts and damage, that is most certainly going to be for the North Georgia mountains. So for Gainesville, Clayton, and Dalton. And then once you go farther south, that's when we could still see ice impacts, but the overall damage is expected to be less than places farther north. So here's the exact reasoning from the National Weather Service of that map. So places within a high certainty for high severity for the winter storm, they could potentially see significant snow, sleet, and ice accumulations. So they're expecting historic stuff for the North Georgia mountains, moderate for the places shaded in orange. So once again, north of Atlanta, it covers parts of Jasper and Putnam County, generally north of Hancock County as well. So once again, they are expecting a good deal of uncertainty, but the potential is there for ice accumulations to reach half an inch. So this is the reason why those areas are within that winter storm watch. And if they were to make this map again, I would be sure that they would include Washington County, Jones County, and Baldwin County within that moderate severity map. So right now we are less than 3 days away. So we're getting high resolution models. So the location, the timing is getting more clear. It looks like we could have some patchy ice begin Saturday afternoon, but most of the accumulation will be Sunday morning. And it also looks like this threat will be mostly for places north of Macon. Now, the temperatures are also going to be a big factor in this forecast because the National Weather Service also says that we're going to be wedged in throughout the forecast and throughout the weekend, sorry. We know how strong the wedge could be here in central Georgia. We know that temperatures could see an extreme differential from certain places compared to the north versus the south. So it all depends on how far south that wedge goes. The more south the wedge goes, the higher the chances for impacts for places south of Macon. So looking at the future view temperatures, it shows that we'll be warmer the next 2 days, but once we get into Saturday afternoon, we'll see temperatures getting into the 30s and then eventually around the lower 30s throughout Sunday morning. So hopefully it stays like this throughout Sunday morning, and hopefully we can see the wedge erode back towards the north, because if that's the case, then we'll see less impacts for our area, and it will decrease the overall chances of any dangerous impacts for us throughout the weekend. It's also going to be gusty throughout the weekend as well. We're going to see winds of up to 20 to 25 miles per hour throughout Saturday, and that's not going to help the trees at all, especially if they encounter any high ice accumulation. So once again, this is the recap of the weather impact alert. Our timing is becoming more clear. It's going to be starting at Saturday afternoon all the way through Sunday, and it could potentially linger into Monday morning. It all depends on if anything refreezes throughout Sunday night, Monday morning, and that could potentially cause some hazardous road conditions throughout Monday morning. Then we're going to be clear Monday afternoon. Temperatures should warm up slightly to above average, meaning that we hope that we'll see some melting around that time. So the need, stay up to date, avoid the roads, especially if you're within that winter storm watch, and postpone any outdoor plans. So I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes answering any questions on Facebook. So is Macon okay? So Macon has a less of a chance of getting any impacts as compared to our most northern counties. I think, in my honest opinion, I think ice is going to be possible, but it's not going to be as much as, say, Putnam County, Hancock County, and Baldwin County. Now, if you live south of Macon, I would now be more confident that it's going to be more of a rain event for y'all. So this includes Peach County. I think Peach County will be mostly rain. You could see some patchy ice throughout the weekend. How many counties? So are you asking how many counties are within the watch? Because if that's the case, let me count right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 counties are within the watch of central Georgia. So it's the majority of our northern counties in our viewing area. Who is working tonight? Ben Jones just walked into the studio. So he's back and he'll be giving updates throughout the night as well. What do you think Wrightsville will look like? I think still ice is still possible within that area, but it will not be as great as, say, Putnam and Jasper County. So it won't be as great as places farther towards the north. So I'm going to go back to this graphic since people are asking about specific locations. So for Dublin, it looks like Dublin, you won't be receiving any extreme impacts throughout the weekend. I'd say some patchy ice is possible throughout Sunday. However, it will not be anything potentially close to our most northern counties. What about Warner Robins' impact for ice? I'd say some ice is possible, but I don't think we'll see any large accumulations throughout Houston County. And then what about Eatonton? Well, Eatonton is within that winter storm watch, so they have the highest likelihood for potentially seeing those impacts because of ice, so power outages and very hazardous road conditions. For the early morning commuters, I would be extra cautious because of that potential for refreezing throughout, especially early Monday morning, because temperatures are going to be below freezing, so we wouldn't have time for anything that falls throughout the weekend to truly melt. So I'd be very cautious, especially for Monday morning. Jones County is within the winter storm watch, so they will have a greater likelihood of seeing impacts because of the ice, but we're not 100% certain that it would be as high as, say, places such as Putnam or Jasper County. Now, there is a scenario where this system could go farther north and most of our area would just experience rain. So we're really hoping that is a scenario. However, we're starting to see model confidence that at least our most northern counties, such as Jasper, Putnam, and Hancock County, will be experiencing the winter impacts. What about Monroe County? Monroe County is not included in the winter storm watch, and most models actually do not indicate any really high ice accumulation, but that could change. If the models sag a little bit towards the south, we could see some impactful ice accumulation for Monroe County. So Monroe County, I'd be on guard for now. I'd be cautious, and hopefully we don't see much for Monroe County. So that will be it for the stream for now, but don't worry, I'll be back at 4 o'clock to answer more questions and also to provide the latest model updates and any other updates from the National Weather Service in regards to our winter weather chances. So thank you so much. Hopefully I'll see you back at 4 o'clock.